Hello again. In our previous couple of lectures, we've talked about integrity modeling, the BIBA's integrity models in particular, strict integrity. One might ask the question, given now that we have Bell and LaPadula and we have BIBA strict integrity model, could you put them together in some way to make a realistic system? And that's what a guy named Steve Lipner from Microsoft tried to do. Okay, so you remember in an earlier lecture we talked about some issues that Lipner said may be important in a commercial environment. So for example, imagine you're in a bank and you've got tellers on the floor using software to balance their drawers, for example. And you've got the development side of the house where the programs get written. But you certainly don't want the programmers to be messing with the software. You want the tellers to be doing that. You want the programmers to be doing that. And so you want to keep these two sides of the house independent from one another, but you also want a way in which, software after it's written and tested carefully can be moved into the production side of the house. That's the sort of environment that Lipner was talking about. So he came up with these 5 integrity concerns. Users shouldn't write their own programs but use existing production software. Programmers develop and test applications on a non-production system, probably using contrived data. And then moving applications from development to production requires some special process. And then that process has to be audited and controlled in some way. And then managers and auditors have to be able to oversee the entire thing. Okay, so then the question is, if those are the kind of integrity concerns that we're interested in, can we use our existing mechanisms like BIBA strict integrity and Bell and LaPadula to do that in a reasonable way? And Lipner said that we could, sort of. So he came up with a system of labels, and I'm not going to go through these in any detail, for integrity and a separate set of labels for confidentiality. And so here, for example, you see in confidentiality we've got 2 hierarchical labels, audit manager and system low, and 3 categories. Production, development, and system development. And then in addition to the confidentiality labels, we have a set of integrity labels. So once again, we have 3 hierarchical components, system program, operational, system low, and 2 integrity categories, development and production, right? And so given that we've got these labels, now we just assign labels to subjects and to objects. And so rather than assigning to individual subjects, he assigned them to roles within the system. So for example, we have ordinary users, application developers, system programmers, system managers, and system controllers, and assigned confidentiality and integrity labels to those. Now you'll notice that there's something a little bit weird about this table, and that is that system controllers have an additional functionality which is called downgrade. Now downgrade here means the ability to move software from the development side of the house to the production side of the house. And that really requires changing the label on a piece of, on an object from development to production. And so that's something that you typically wouldn't find in Bell and LaPadula or in BIBA strict integrity. Okay. Well, here's the labels associated with objects within the system. Once again, confidentiality labels and integrity labels. And I recommend that you go over this table and see whether these seem to be reasonable. But what's the upshot of this? Well, given that we've got these labels on confidentiality and integrity labels on subjects and objects, now we can just apply the Bell and LaPadula rules and the BIBA strict integrity rules and ask the question, for example, can an ordinary user utilize a system program or modify it? And the answer is, if by utilize we mean read, yes, which is what you'd want, but not modify, which is also what you'd want. And so you can ask these kind of questions, but what's a little bit odd about this is that we need this special downgrade permission. And the question you might ask is, could that be done with Bell and LaPadula and BIBA alone? And the answer is no, because in those systems there's no obvious way to change the label of a system unless you have some peculiar interpretation of the weak tranquility property. Right. So what have we learned? Well, Lipner worked pretty hard to figure out whether he could use BIBA and Bell and LaPadula to come up with a confidentiality policy that was rich enough and reasonable enough within this sort of environment. And he sort of did, right? However, even with all of his hard work, he found that you still needed to do some additional tweaking of the policies and add this downgrade capability, which means that it's sort of a hybrid of Bell and LaPadula and BIBA strict integrity, but you have to add this additional changes. And so the result is acceptable, but not entirely intuitive and not entirely within these standard frameworks. And so the question that comes to mind is, can we do better than that? Can we come up with a modeling paradigm for commercial environments which is more natural? And that's what we're going to look at next time. Thank you.